Just 165 miles from San Francisco lies one of America's greatest treasures. Yosemite National Park sits on the western slopes of California's Sierra Nevada mountains. It also occupies a special place in the nation's soul. Yosemite's story began as the last ice age ended, when the glaciers of the region's high country scoured and sculptured the valley below. Managed by the National Park Service and covering almost 1,200 square miles, Yosemite takes in 5 vegetation zones, from oak and chaparral woodlands to sparse alpine high country. Of the 4 million visitors who come each year, most spend their time in Yosemite Valley, which is open year-round. At only 8 miles long and 1 mile wide, this valley packs in more jaw-dropping scenery than just about any other place on Earth. As you enter the Yosemite Valley Ring Road from the west, it's worth taking a short detour to Tunnel View and stand before a sweeping panorama that's reduced generations of visitors to silence and many to tears. To the right, there's the ethereal mist of Bridal Veil Fall. To the left, the sheer granite face of El Capitan, while in the background, the rising majesty of Half Dome beckons you deeper into the valley. Here, the river is lined with pine forests, rich meadows, and beaches. These are the places to pause and let the park's spirit wash over you. These are the places which inspired President Teddy Roosevelt to write, "It was like lying in a great solemn cathedral, far vaster and more beautiful than any built by the hand of man." The Yosemite Valley Ring Road is dotted with trailheads that lead off into 800 miles of hiking trails. First cut almost 150 years ago, the 4-mile trail climbs the valley's southern wall to 2 of the park's greatest outlooks. At Glacier Point, gaze down into the entire valley and away into the distant high country. A little further along, whatever breath you have left will be taken away by the views at Washburn Point. If you're pressed for time, you can also access these outlooks by car or tour bus via Glacier Point Road, which is open between May and November. Further along the Ring Road is the trailhead for another of Yosemite's signature hikes, the Mist Trail. This 5-hour hike is for moderate to experienced hikers, but repays every step with even more stunning vistas and the spectacle of Vernal and Nevada Falls. The Mist Trail links up with the John Muir Trail, named after the grandfather of America's national park system. In his 1912 book, The Yosemite, the naturalist wrote, "Everybody needs beauty as well as bread, places to play in and pray in, where nature may heal and give strength to body and soul alike." It was writings like this which helped seed Yosemite into the consciousness of a nation and led to its designation as one of America's first national parks. From its high country to its waterfalls, from its towering sequoia to its valley meadows, Yosemite is an American story unlike any other. It is a place where a nation returns again and again, through the best and worst of times, to breathe, to be inspired, and just be. For this is a place, John Muir once wrote, that is far easier to feel than to explain. This is a place to wash the spirit clean.
Yosemite's geologic history. The first step in the creation of this magnificent valley was with the formation of its granite. You are looking at El Capitan, the largest piece of unbroken granite in the world. This, along with the rest of the granite in Yosemite, was formed hundreds of thousands of years ago. Granite is formed as a slow cooling of magma underneath the Earth's surface. Through time, the upper layers are eroded away, eventually to expose the granite. When this granite is exposed, there's a lot of built-up internal pressure that needs to be released. This pressure is released in the forms of cracks that we call faults. The next step was the uplift of the Sierra Nevadas.
So the Sierra Nevada mountain range uplifted in a very unique way. Most mountain ranges will lift from the center, like this. However, the Sierras lifted on a hinge, so it lifted like this, where the eastern side that we can see behind us is extremely steep, but the western slope is a lot more gradual.
Not only did this unique uplift create the steep eastern Sierra slope, but it caused all the rivers that run east to west, like the Merced River and Tenaya Creek, to run even faster than before. These fast-moving waters carved deep V-shaped canyons into the granite, sweeping away loose rock and sediment into the Central Valley. During a series of ice ages, Yosemite filled up with glaciers. Glaciers are a slow accumulation of snow that compacts into ice. In Yosemite, all but the top 200 feet of Half Dome was covered by ice. Eventually this ice had to leave. As the glaciers were leaving the valley, it swept off more loose rock and sediment from the sides of the V-shaped canyon. This rock was swept away based on the fault systems that had formed when the granite was exposed.
This hill behind me is called a moraine. This moraine was left from the glaciers as they were receding. It's composed of all the loose rock and sediment and was piled up. It was bulldozed into this hill. On the other side of this moraine used to be a lake called Ancient Lake Yosemite. That lake filled the valley floor, but through time, sediment continued to build up in that area. And eventually the lake filled up with sediment and the river was able to cut its way through the moraine. That's what causes our flat valley floor.
We now know how the U-shaped valley was formed, but how did our domes form? Remember those fault systems that had formed when the granite was exposed? The faults that had formed at our domes were almost parallel to the surface of the Earth. Through time, pressure relief exfoliation happens, where layers of the rock exfoliate away. Those layers of exfoliation create the domes that we see today. When you look at Half Dome, you can tell it was formed with a combination of pressure relief exfoliation along with glaciation. The steep granite walls, flat valley floor, and stunning domes all make up the beauty of Yosemite Valley. Now that you know the geologic story of Yosemite, go out and experience its beauty for yourself. It's time to go out into nature and see what it has to offer you physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Just wake up, feel the humming. This cool world is giving you a better start running to catch up with your life. I catch on up before the whole thing is through. Have you once?
Does it feel different to be up there without a rope?
It's obviously like much higher consequence.
People who know a little bit about climbing, they're like, oh, he's totally safe. And then people who really know exactly what he's doing are freaked out.
I've thought about El Cap like for years, and every year I'm like, that's really scary. I'll never be content unless I at least put in the effort. El Cap is the most impressive wall on Earth.
It's 3,200 feet of sheer granite. It's the center of the rock climbing universe.
Obviously I get interview questions about it all the time. Oh, would you like to do that? And you're like, yes, for sure.
So you have a girlfriend now, I heard.
It was awesome. Pretty much makes life better in every way.
It's really hard for me to grasp why he wants this. But if he doesn't do this stuff, he'd regret it.
Everybody who has made free soloing a big part of their life is dead now.
I haven't been injured in like 7 years. I suddenly start getting injured all the time.
What if something happens? What if I don't see him again?
I could just walk away, but it's like, I don't want to.
I've always been conflicted about shooting a film about free soloing just because it's so dangerous. It's hard to not imagine your friend falling through the frame to his death.
I think when he's free soloing, that's when he feels the most alive, most everything. How can you even think about taking it away from somebody?
No mistakes tomorrow.
It's starting to get kind of psyched.
If you're pushing the edge, eventually you find the edge.
I can't believe you guys actually can watch.
Hey Jimmy, do you copy? Just started climbing.